Welcome everyone to yet another episode of the ERG Movement Podcast. Here we bring on really amazing ERG leaders and people who are in the ERG space who are doing great things. And today is not an exception here. We have Samantha here from Headspace. I'm really excited to hear all about your experiences and for you to share them with the audience because you have some amazing gems. I want to pass the mic to you and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and just how you got into the ERG space.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Samantha Edu. I am a licensed professional counselor. I work for Headspace Health. I've been there for about 3 years and got into the ERG space when the organization realized that we wanted to start offering some brave and safe spaces for our different communities. And I knew immediately that I wanted to be a part of that. And so we started out by just sending in some applying to have a different space. And of course, we started our Black employee resource group about almost 18 months ago. And we've been rocking and rolling ever since. So that is how I got into the ERG space. And I have been enjoying every single moment of it since then.
I love that. And were you ever in any ERGs prior to this?
No, this is my first experience being in an ERG or leading an ERG.
Exciting. Okay, that's big. That's big. So you were part of the application process and getting this started. I love to talk to ERG founders. I've never personally founded an ERG as the member. I've come into one that already existed. So I'm curious what that process looked like. What were some of the highlights and lowlights there?
Mm-hmm. You know what? Until you said that, I was like, dang, okay, we did found a Black ERG. Look at us. Mm-hmm. So my official role is the chair of membership engagement, and we do have an executive chair. And so we partnered together in creating a charter. We were able to choose an executive sponsor and then start the process of sending out the form for people to sign up for our Black ERG, which meant to come up with our values and our mission and then share information out across the organization. One thing we did have in place was we had a Slack channel, and it was our Black Slack channel. So there were people already in the Slack channel that knew that they would want to be a part of the ERG. So it was sort of easy for us to put our information into the Slack channel. And then of course, the organization also marketed our ERGs as well. So founding it was a journey. I'll say that part because everything's new to the organization and new to us. So it was cool, but it was cool to see how many people were excited to get in and start, communicating with each other.
How long would you say that process took from the idea of, first of all, how did that conversation come up when it first was like, we should have an ERG, and how long from that to officially launching the ERG?
That part I'm not sure, because I think our executive team started having it with our DEIB team that introduced it to the organization. And so we all heard about it in one of our all hands meetings. And then from there, it was like, whoa, I know I want to do this. And so I was connected with Veronica, who is our executive chair, and she had also expressed interest. So we partnered, decided who wanted which role, and we just went from there. So from about November to January, we were in the planning stages. Probably October to January, we were in the planning stages, but by January, we were planning our meetings out and putting information into the Slack channel, what days were going to be what days, how we wanted to engage. We were in full-blown engagement.
I love that. And so it's a two-woman show? Is you two on the leadership team?
It's wow. Just two.
Okay. And roughly, is it like a bigger organization or like ballpark in terms of how many employees or like how many people are in you all's ERG?
So I want to say ballpark, and this could be so wrong, but 600 plus, around 600 to 700, and we have about 115 in our ERG. And so in our Slack channel, which is very active, we get most of our activity there. And then we have our meetings once a month. We have open meetings where our allies are welcome to join us. And then we have our official meetings where it's our Black ERG members only.
I love this for so many reasons. First of all, huge shout out to you both. They say, Black women will do it if no one else will. A two-woman show here in terms of holding down an ERG of over 115 people. I know ERGs that are struggling with 5-7 people on the ERG leadership team who can't get that engagement in Slack and can't get a consistent meeting on the schedule. So we're gonna talk about that. I'm curious how that went then, even just at that first meeting. Like, how was the turnout and what have been some of the learnings since you all first launched?
I would say that first meeting turnout was just exciting because we were excited to have our Black family up in there, like just getting together. And it was like just a big welcome to the Black ERG. So we made it really exciting. We really hyped it up in the Slack chat and really asked the community what they wanted to see from the Black ERG. So that first meeting was all about just partnering with them to see, what do y'all want to talk about? Like, what do you need? What do you want to see in this Slack channel? What'll make y'all engage instead of us trying to figure that part out? But one thing that really helped us to launch was we launched the ERG in January and Black History Month was in February. So we had already been planning so many events for February that it was like, boom, and it was a big month for our Black ERG. So that really helped to boost our engagement moving forward. Now, one of the things that is always a learning for us is how to keep the engagement up for our meetings, just because people have to choose to come to the meeting, which means, if you're tired, that is not always what you want to do. So we really try to create meetings that give you energy, not necessarily take energy from you. And that's what we hear a lot of feedback is people say, man, these are the meetings that really give us energy and we want to keep that going.
And I would imagine that you all at Headspace would have like a special ability to do this a little more than most. So I'm curious, what are some of those things that you've seen or you've heard feedback from people like this meeting was one that really kind of poured into my cup for your members?
Oh man, so many, because it's one, we're always laughing. So it's always some Black joy. We focus a lot on Black joy. We started seeing so much more engagement when we met with one of our DEIB specialists, and she was saying, like, what do Black people get excited about? And it was Black joy. And so we started putting in different things throughout the week, and it might just be something controversial and what would you take out or what would you add in or what do you have to say about this? And people will just get excited and we're laughing in the channel the whole day and stuff like that. But when it comes to the meetings, it was a mix of the meetings. So we do something called Hot Topics where we would take TikTok videos that are controversial and share them in the group and then create topics or discussion around those TikTok videos, which those are really good conversations to have. And then when we share real world experiences, like most recently, we did a Black men's mental health panel where we had 5 Black men who volunteered to do a panel and share their experiences. And it was an open meeting to our whole organization. And we had about 174 employees to join and be a part of that panel. And it's still being discussed. And we are hoping to use that to catapult discussions around Black men's mental health across the organization moving forward.
This is so incredible. When I tell you, I know when people are listening to this, they're going to be inspired, even just that there's 2 ERG leaders bringing this amazing programming to life. Like, my mind is blown here. There's so many things that you just said. I love the TikTok piece. I think it's a really good way to connect to what's happening and like what's relevant now. Even just, I'm curious on like the logistics of that. Like, how does that work? Do you schedule them in advance? Is it just like we found something, we posted it in the channel. Yeah, how does that?
So all of our meetings are scheduled out for the year. So they're on the same day of the month every month. And then in the Slack channel, so for March, the theme is hair story. So I pre-scheduled different YouTube videos or articles or different funny things to go out throughout the month of March related to hair. And it could be, I think this week it was about father figures doing their daughter's hair and, people sharing their experiences about that. And so people posted pictures of them doing their daughter's hair, something like that. So I will pre-schedule some things. But when it comes to the meetings and using the TikToks, Veronica and I meet once a week. And so we'll just have them already saved and ready to go for the meeting.
This is so cool. Wow. I love it. I love it. I'm inspired myself. I love the Black Men's Mental Health Panel. I feel like a lot of people are hesitant to do those type of events around mixed company where you also have allies there, understandably so, but how do you maintain that safe space for people to speak frank in a space also with allies in it?
When we were planning it, Veronica and I had already discussed this some time ago around wanting to hear more from Black men. And so we asked them way in advance, and then we identified one of the Black men on the care team to facilitate the panel, and then created a separate Slack channel for them to get to know each other and also, share how comfortable they were with what information. They created their questions and answers prior to the actual meeting so that they could answer based on what they were comfortable with. And what came out of that was a beautiful compilation of Black joy mixed with real world experience and what that looks like for them without it needing to be whitewashed in any way. And also knowing that their experiences are not just their experiences, their experiences are my experiences. They are anybody who's watching, because we all have a Black male in our lives in some way. And we are all looking to see how can we best support them. And that's what we wanted to set the scene for. How are we taking away best ways to support the Black man in our lives?
I love
Even
that.
if it's just your coworker on the screen.
Right. And you said it was well received, not just in attendance, but people enjoyed it?
Absolutely. I mean, the chat was blowing up. I saved the chat so I could share it with the facilitators because they were wholly present. And all of the feedback they have received, they've shared with me and Veronica. They've sent us different feedback. They've been invited to share on different podcasts themselves, participate, even on our Headspace content, and it's just amazing what can happen when you're really intentional about creating something like that.
Right. And I love that too, how they're being able to be leveraged too, by the company themselves. And you're really positioning them for other opportunities by allowing them a space to be themselves and like that. Yeah. The conversation of private Slack groups versus public, you all use Slack, by the way, right? So the conversation of private Slack groups versus public is one that's definitely trending in the ERG space. How do you all approach that?
Our Slack group is private. And so we don't have a Slack group that includes allies. We only have our private Black ERGs. All of our ERGs have private groups.
Got you. So then when you go to invite people, you're inviting people who are from the Slack group, or if that's how you all collect membership, is that?
So we collect membership using a Google form. So we have our official members fill out a form and our allies fill out a form. So if it's an open to the organization meeting, then it's open to the organization meeting. We push it out on all Slack channels. But if it's something where we're just saying we are only inviting people who have signed up as allies, I also keep a spreadsheet of people who have officially signed up as allies, and I will send them an email and officially invite them into the space.
Got you. That's an interesting take for sure. I'm curious how else you all utilize your Slack channels. Do you all, I know that there's some really cool things that Slack has and not everyone utilizes. So yeah, how do you all use them?
One thing I did last year that has been super helpful, because everybody wanted to be in the Black ERG. So they were just like putting all their friends in the Black ERG. And so we were not having people to sign up on the official form. They were just coming into the ERG. And so after I ended up having to go through about 75, 80 people, one at a time, I said I need another route because this won't work. So I created a workflow in Slack where when a person is invited into the Slack channel and it shows that they've been added to the Slack channel, then the bot sends them an automated message saying the message that I created, which was like, hey, I'm so glad you signed up to join the Black ERG. I'm excited. Would you please complete this form? And I linked our official form. And so we have not had to go back and do that ad and look over and check and balance again. And I'm getting ready to do it now because we are in a new year and I want to make sure our numbers are correct. But we didn't have to do, it's not a big difference. I think it's a difference by like 5 or 6 people, which is huge. So that has been really helpful with Slack.
And are you like a Slack professional or like a coder developer?
I just like playing around with stuff until I find what I was looking for.
So anyone could really do these things if they're in Slack.
Anybody can do it.
That's good. I mean, for me, I am a Slack nerd, not a Slack professional, but I am a Slack super nerd. But I want people to know you don't have to be a Slack super nerd to be able to do things like that and automate in Slack.
Slack has made it really easy to automate your channels.
I love that. Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan. Big fan. All right, I'm curious what other things you all have done just to kind of, what are some other member engagement things that you all have done? Maybe it's not even in an event, like not even live, to get people involved or to uplift members.
One thing that we started doing last year is celebrating all of the things that our members are doing inside of Headspace and outside of Headspace. So if there's something that members are doing and they want to share with us, like if it's another business that they have, or something that they are like selling or creating or want to share, even if they're doing podcasts and they want to increase engagement, we created meetings around that. So what that would be like, and then we started doing business spotlights. So once a month, we will highlight a business and just encourage people to support those businesses that signed up for the business spotlight, which was really awesome because you find out all these gifts and talents that people have, and you never know what someone else is doing, and you could partner together. It's just been really cool to see what people are just bringing into the Headspace table, because we really recognize that we bring stuff into the table and add to it, and we want to celebrate that for sure.
I love that too. Even just providing a platform for people. I mean, that's part of people being able to be their authentic selves, full selves at work, learning about what they do outside of work as well.
Absolutely. It's been really cool. And then I think one thing that led to us doing this is we recognize that Black people, one of the things that we found out just in asking questions, we don't necessarily celebrate the things that we do. Even if it's like outside of work, we can be doing a whole different thing that's amazing. And you ask about it or find out, you're like, wow, you never even told me about this. I didn't know you were even doing that thing. I didn't even know you had this. I bought it from somebody else. I would have rather got it from you. And so it's like, how do we create this environment of celebration and celebrating each other when we just don't have to just celebrate, our Headspace Health achievements, which we do highlight and celebrate Headspace Health promotions, and when our Black ERG members are promoted or do something great or highlighted in one of the bigger team meetings, like we are screenshotting them, shouting them out, we are tagging their quotes, we are out there like really being their biggest cheerleaders.
I love that. So the members must feel connected then. I mean, even just knowing each other on that different level. Do you see that type of connection between people?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I really appreciate that. And I think that there's always room to do more of it, but because we are an organization, and the reality is you never know who can be watching these Slack channels in people's mind. It's like, I don't know who in these Slack channels, but I love it. I think that even with that, the connections that have been made, and we're remote. We all work remote. Most of us have never seen each other in person. To be able to be connected, we don't work in the same department, so we're not in the same meetings. It's amazing to have that.
This is very, very even for the fact being a remote company. So like you mentioned, it's not like there's that in-person connection that's like really fueling this. The fact that it's already a smaller team, for the whole company, but even just for you two to be doing this work, and there's this much connection, this much like frequent engagement, and you all have creatively like found ways to engage people. I'm not blown away because, but at the same time, I'm just like wowed in the sense of like, this is amazing work that you all are doing. I know one of the things that came up when we were talking before this was like microaggressions that Black employees face in the workplace. I'm curious how you all have kind of tackled that conversation through your ERG.
Yeah. We just open the floor and talk about it. That's one of those conversations where we're like, okay, we need to have this conversation first closed. And then we have this conversation open, and we invited an external speaker, which also helped the space to feel like, okay, this is a safer space because it's not me presenting or one of Headspace employees. We invite a speaker to come in and just share some of their experiences, but that's an ongoing conversation. I think it's on our schedule to have another microaggression conversation because that one might have been paired with another conversation, and it is one that is always going to be ongoing, but we talk about it often and we really do try to just keep the space open where it can be discussed. We have open hours. So every other week we do a 30-minute open hour. So anybody from the Black ERG can just drop in for 30 minutes and talk to either me or Veronica. And we're just talking about whatever's going on, whatever they want to bring up. And so sometimes that's a great space for us to just sort of breathe, debrief, whatever needs to happen in there, and it's that has been really helpful too, to have just a space to come to.
I love that. What piece of advice, if you had to tell ERG leaders like one thing that has been like a game changer in your ERG or like a learning, what would that be?
Be curious. I think this answers the question you just asked about the BIPOC or people of color group, is going to that being very curious, because people bring different, come from different intersections. And so going into that with curiosity really does create safety in those spaces. And so be curious, even if you are in a people of color space, whatever the ERG is, be curious about the people that are in there. Ask them what they want before you create all this programming to give them something you think they want and they don't want it. That will really help to decrease some of your own burnout, angst, and confusion, because you're offering something that they haven't asked for.
You are saying such great things. That was so good. I almost want to end on that note, but I remember my other question. So I'm still going to ask it anyway, but I don't want people to miss that though, especially about providing your members with the value that they want, not what you think they want, because it can be two different things, especially if you're going in here passionate. Here's some things I know that, we all care about. No. Ask the questions, because I could go on all day about how I think Black people need to get into the metaverse and AI. Like for me, like, come on now. But for other people, it's like, yo, can we talk about like performance reviews? Can we talk about like, it can be different things for different people. So yeah, anyway, the last question that I have is how you cater your events across the diaspora. And you kind of just answered that, but even just like, what are some examples of things that are like recognizing that, Black people aren't a monolith? And I think that I want ERG leaders to know who are listening to this. This applies to whatever community you're in. But yeah, just curious how you approach that and what some examples have been.
One is the leading with curiosity. And so that's the larger answer. And one example of that is last year we did one of our meetings was learning about the different identities, and it was titled The Family Reunion. And we asked people to just share where did they come from and something unique about that place or a memory that they would like to share. And so what that felt like coming into the space. And when we got into the meeting, the whole topic was Black people are not a monolith. And they shared their different experiences around even coming from the same place, or some of them realized they came from the same place and really connected on some of those like experiences. So that's why I would say leading with curiosity, because we did a whole Google survey and a map with different pins from people from all the different places. And so that helped us to, one, show that we are recognizing that different people come from different intersections of life. And then also with any topic that we have, exploring what are the differences. One, we are going to have blind spots. We are going to have biases, and we're open to having conversations around that in our Black ERG. And all ERGs, all people should be open to having conversations around their own cultural humility and how they explore this with an open mind.
Oh, that was so good too. For that event that you did, because we've done something similar, but we picked panelists in advance. So I'm curious how that meeting went. And we curated the questions. So had 8 questions that each of the panelists answered from a different aspect of the diaspora. But I like this, that it's the members are getting involved. So I'm curious, even just the logistics of that meeting, how did you set it up and how it went there?
Well, we created a Google form and sent it into the Slack, into the Slack, so that people can just start filling out the form. So people from everywhere completed the form, and it was where were you born? Where do you live now? What is something that was unique to where you were born? If there was something that they wanted to share or a memory related to that thing, that was a question on the form. And then when we created the map, there was a pin where we would just put the unique thing in their name. So the map just showed everybody's name, different pins. So some people were on the same pin. And then when we came into the meeting, Veronica and I facilitated. So we didn't have a panel. We just shared our findings from those questions. And then people could share their memories or thoughts or expand on the different things.
I love that. So I'm crediting you for it, but just not going to take that idea. I will credit you though. Now, were you all the first ERG at Headspace?
They started them all at the same time.
Oh, okay, got you. Oh, yes, that makes sense because it was in that all hands meeting. Okay, going back to that then, because I did have a question when you were saying that. You said coming out of that meeting, you were fired up to get involved. I'm curious what it is about ERGs that got you so interested. And for context, the reason why I'm so curious is because as a ERG program manager, and I think that there's other people in this space who are trying to get ERG leaders to join, but they just don't know the thing to say to motivate people. So I'm curious what it was.
I think one, because I had never been a part of an ERG before, and I knew what sort of maybe comfortability comes out of just being in the Black space. And it doesn't mean that all Black people get along. I don't want to send that type of narrative because that's not the truth. But also in community, we are able to create this braver space where we can just come in and talk about Black experiences across the journey of Black experiences, because we are not a monolith. We are able to just talk about them in a space where, even though we recognize we don't all have like experiences, we do have so many that are that it is worth it for us to have a space that is our own. It's power in having a space that is our own. It is so much power in having a space where I can come into and make a joke or, say something that's trending and it's people that just get it. I don't have to explain it. It's so much power in that. It's power in
Mhm.
being celebrated, and you are in a meeting or presenting, and you're the only Black face on the screen, and that screenshot shows up in your Black ERG, and then you get all the emojis, all the shout outs, all the quotes,
Mhm.
knowing that people are hearing your voice, knowing you're being heard. If you're not being heard by this group of people, you know it's a group of people listening to you and valuing what you have to say. I just feel like it's invaluable. And I'm really thankful that Headspace is creating these spaces while we learn more about the ERG movement. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, I love that too. And I know that feeling because I mean, I think most Black professionals have been that one Black employee in a predominantly white space. And even sometimes you might slip up and say something that like the white colleagues are like, what? I know one time I said like, oh yeah, you came in like clutch, appreciate that. And they were all like, clutch? And I was like, oh, sorry, you're very helpful. But yeah, definitely having that community where you're able to connect with other people can be so powerful. Was it, now when this community first started, was it immediately where I was like, okay, there's this space, or over time, did it take people getting more comfortable over time? Curious how that was.
I think because we had the Black Slack channel previously, and there were so many people that were in the Black Slack channel, even though they weren't meeting, I think that helped to create some safety already. But of course, it took time for our meetings to start, for us to get in a groove of what this was actually supposed to be like. But the connection was already there with quite a few people already. So we started out with feeling connected. And then Veronica and I work really well together. So that was helpful too.
You just said something that I've been trying to like bring this point home for so long. You all already had a Slack channel before this was a formal ERG. So you already had a community in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
0 to 100 is not necessarily going to make people feel that sense of safety.
No, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. It just won't. Just because we're all on a Zoom does not mean we're all comfortable with each other or want to talk to each other or want to have these really difficult conversations. So, if you haven't spent time, we spent our first quarter, it was even longer than that, where we did not talk about OKRs, goals, things like that. We talked about them generally, but we were highly encouraged to just focus on building community for the first 6 months of our ERG. And that meant building our Slack, building engagement. And I think that was the best advice for our ERG because we just focused on building community, however that looked like.
I love that. I need the thing where I have like sound effects, because then you'll get like some air horns off of what you just said, because that is so big. You can't, without a community, you can't drive the type of change that you're looking for. Like, even if it's just those conversations, like you just said. So then I really want to hear, and you kind of touched on this a little bit in what you all do in Slack and things like that, but how do you build that community? Like, what were some things that happened both before launch, like in the Slack channel, what was happening to get people comfortable? And then even after you all launched, what were some things that really helped those people to feel connected to each other?
I think we came up with different themes for throughout the week. So it might be Wednesday wins or Tuesday trends, something like that. And then we would just post and ask people to respond. What are some of your thoughts about this? And then they might be funny. We did a motivation on Monday where I would post some affirmations or something like that to just get some engagement there. And in one of the meetings, we just had a discussion like, hey, listen, we're not out here alone in this community. We need y'all to talk back to us if we're in the meeting we're in the Slack channel. We need conversation. So what do y'all want us to be talking about? Because just leaving us on red is not okay.
That's bold to just say that. Now, was there a difference after?
Yes, because it made people laugh. You know what I'm saying? And then they were like, you're right. So That was really helpful. And then like highlighting, once we started highlighting what people were doing without asking them, like we would just be in a meeting with someone who was also in the ERG and highlighting them in the meeting. And they, you start to feel like, oh, okay, they just highlighted me in the Black ERG. Now they're getting all this traction, attention, this celebration. And we just started doing it. So now people do it on their own and just put people out there. And I think that's awesome, which helps you to start feeling like, okay, they for me, I think that has been helpful in just using our Slack channel for engagement, because that's mainly how we get engagement and engage with our teams.
See, we're going to have to definitely have you back. And this whole episode is really probably going to be rooted in that Slack piece, because I think a lot of people are struggling and saying, oh, people are Slack fatigued and stuff, so they're not going to engage in Slack. But it's really like, how are you creatively engaging people in Slack?
Absolutely. Because I can tell you, I have about, at the most, on my most busiest days, I'm in meetings probably 7 or 8. And if I don't read anything else, I'm going to read the Black Collective. That's the name of our ERG, the Black Collective. I am going to read the Black Collective ERG Slack channel messages, because I know I'm going to get a laugh. I know I'm going to get some, I know I'm getting something that is helpful, or it's something that I want to engage in. Like it's creating something I want to be a part of, or at least just read. So it's not asking me to always do something or some topic that's always heavy. It has to be a mixture, and you definitely have to give more than you want to take from your members.
I just need to let that sit for people, because I think a lot of people will go into Slack and they'll use it only as a promotional tool for their events. They'll only post in there to get something from their members, not realizing that it's so much. You have to provide that value at scale before you even get that, like a piece of that in return.
And that was a big lesson that Veronica and I learned early on, that it was like, whoa, we have to give so much. And we had to learn, though, to put boundaries around our time and also streamline some stuff that we were doing so that we wouldn't get burned out feeling like we needed to give so much. And so that's when we did start to schedule different things and also cut back on some things that weren't getting a lot of attention. Stop doing it. Be intentional about what you're doing.
Now, I have a trick question. It's not really a trick question, but I'm curious how you would answer it still. Let's say that it was the same ERG. However, it was a people of color ERG for multiple communities. I see the look on your face. Look, I have similar emotions, but how would you approach community building where the community is a lot broader?
So one of the things that I also do in my role as a senior manager for therapy services is I facilitate BIPOC provider community groups. So they are very different from ERGs, but there is a huge aspect of community building there. And so we don't have the Slack channel. So we don't have all of those things that are built into that Slack channel piece. And so creating community has been much more difficult. We put a lot into the meeting itself. So how we are leaning into like experiences, how we started to do smaller breakout rooms so people can actually get to know one another in a smaller group, that they can connect and find value in each, and then also leave with something to take until our next meeting. So I think if it was a broader group, then I would sort of create spaces where people would get to know each other on a smaller scale, to create something that felt safer for in that group. And also recognizing that everybody's not going to feel safe or brave. It's just, some people are just going to be there to observe.
Right. That does come with it. That's for sure. Okay. This is interesting. I mean, this has been an amazing conversation. Like I said, we're definitely going to have you back for a part 2. And I know that there's going to be some questions coming out of this, especially for people who are looking to revamp their Slack engagement. So one, just want to definitely thank you for joining us today. Like I mentioned, here at the ERG Movement, we like to bring on ERG leaders who are doing some really dope things in the ERG space. And this is no exception. So yeah, and tell the people where to find you, how to connect with you.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Samantha Edu. You can also check me out on my own website at samanthaedu.com, where you will find some other things that I'm doing, but you can always reach me through that website or through LinkedIn. And I'm always happy to share any knowledge I might have.
I love it because I didn't even think about that. We definitely have to touch on the intersection between ERGs and the whole mental health conversation. And I know you have some good insights there. So we're going to have you back for sure. And I appreciate this and looking forward to the next one.
Yes, thank you so much.